Subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon so that you know when live we go. Hello and welcome to Daily News Simplified. In the next 25 minutes, I'll ride you through today's newspaper discussing the most important articles from the paper relevant to civil service examination. The articles that we will take up for discussion has been displayed on the screen. Timestamping also has been provided at suitable place. By now, you must have understood the nature and extent of Indo-China border conflict. You must also be knowing important locations along LAC and the disputed areas. Given a piece of paper and pen, you must also be able to draw a rough map of the region and mark important locations along LAC. Now, when we have learned so much of it, it is natural to do an analysis as to what went wrong, why situation has come to this. And that's what the author of this article from page number 6 has tried to do. The title of the article is Making Sense of China's Calculation. The article analyzes the limitations and failures of India's intelligence and India's strategic calculation, which failed to anticipate such an intrusion by Chinese army. In the previous DNS dated 26 June, we have learned from the government's announcement that China has been amassing troops and armaments along line of actual control for nearly 2 months now. The author of the article says that a charge that can be leveled against successive central government is that while China has consistently asserted its claim over the whole Aksai Chin, India has chosen to overlook China's more recent postures in this region. And in this regard, author gives facts and do the analysis to come to a conclusion that there has been lapses and failure of India's intelligence and India's strategic calculation. Coming to failure of intelligence. Intelligence is an important topic to be covered under internal security under paper 3. So the basic definition of intelligence you must know, a question on importance of intelligence for security of our nation and the mechanism of collecting intelligence can be asked in the coming mains exam. Intelligence is basically information gathered from within or outside the nation. It could be regarding anything. For example, regarding threats to the nation, its people and property, regarding development, proliferation and use of weapons of mass destruction, or any other matter bearing national security. Collection of such information is called as intelligence in the context of security. The value of intelligence stems from the fact that better decision can be made based on better information. The policymakers, the strategists will be hamstrung if they do not have good intelligence coming from the ground. Many attacks can be averted because of intelligence. The intelligence arm of India gets very active before Independence Day, Republic Day, or any other important summit. And they have been successful in averting many attacks. So, intelligence gathering must also be beefed up according to the timing. The timing and nature of China's action should have aroused keen interest in the intelligence organizations about China's strategic calculation. But perhaps this did not happen because the author says Chinese buildup in the Galwan Valley, Pangong Lake, Deep Sang Plain, and Hot Springs Gogra region did not require any great intelligence effort, since the Chinese was also not attempting to hide it. They were making semi-permanent structures there, but still we were not ready with adequate preparedness. The author says that India does possess high quality imagery intelligence and signals intelligence capability, distributed between NTRO, National Technical Research Organization, the Directorate of Signals Intelligence in Ministry of Defense, and other agencies. And all this institutional capability would have made possible to track Chinese movement. We have EMISAT, the satellite dedicated for intelligence gathering. We also have HISIS, the hyperspectral imaging satellite, which is used for dual purpose, both for military and civilian. It has the capability to see through the soil up till few centimeters. We have such strong technological capability in imagery and signal intelligence. You would remember that after the surgical strike in Pakistan, Indian Air Force reportedly presented to the government radar and satellite images showing the bombing of the intended target. So if we are so capable and we were yet unaware, of Chinese maneuvering around the border, then this is a clear cut case of failure of intelligence gathering. But this is not just the failure of intelligence gathering. There has been lapse at the end of strategic calculation as well. The author says the importance of a sky chin for China has greatly increased of late, and it provides direct connectivity between the two most troubled regions of China, the Xinjiang and Tibet. China has constructed Highway 219 connecting both these regions, and this does not seem to have been adequately factored in by India's strategic policy making bodies. Whenever there is huge investment, infrastructure development in any region, then the government gets active to protect that infrastructure and investment. For instance, when Tapi pipeline was in the planning stage, then even the Pakistani government was active in removing the terrorists and the extremists from the region. During the course of construction of India, Myanmar and Thailand trilateral highway, India pressurized the government of Myanmar to clear the region of extremists, give protection to the infrastructure project, and have adequate preparedness for security. Similarly, it must have come naturally to the strategists and thinkers that since China has been actively investing in the region, they will make some effort, and that may result in clashes with India at the border. While Indian policymakers saw the reorganization of the state of Jammu and Kashmir and reclassification of Ladakh as purely an internal matter, there was failure in picking up the fact that for China's military planner, the carving out of Ladakh into Union territory posed a threat to China's peace and tranquility. In fact, they gave very strongly worded statement on this. It does not mean that we are not to do what we feel is right for our own national interest, but the point that author is trying to make, when we do something, there might be reaction from neighbor, and that reaction should have been anticipated. The author further says that Indian strategists also failed to pick up big sign of Chinese forward push. In the previous DNS, we saw that the time of peaceful rise of China is over. They have dropped the policy of peaceful growth or peaceful development. Now this is forward pushing China, assertive, bullying China. And there has been sign for this. For example, China now don't care about rising tension or the trade war with the US. China has been pushing hard its grip over Taiwan, over Hong Kong, and there also has been repeated naval incidents in South China Sea. We learned about salami tactic in the last DNS, in which China is trying to win over the neighbors, exert influence on the neighbors, piece by piece. And when the fight in the region will be over, things will come to our doorstep as well. This must have been anticipated. In the previous DNS, we also saw that China does not see India as a swing state. China see India to be already a very strong ally of US. China also see India as a counterweight that different nation is trying to set up against China. So the author is saying that our closeness to US should also have factored in any adverse response from China. The author further says that since last year, when China's economy began to show signs of decline, followed by COVID-19 pandemic, China is known to have become extremely sensitive to what it perceived as effort made by others to exploit its weakness. Although China never took criticism, but lately China has been very adverse to critics. It does not mean that we are to not criticize China. As we have been doing in post-COVID-19, we have been very vocal about China's irresponsibility in handling the COVID-19. They hid the information. But when we are criticizing, we must be aware of the other country's sensitivity, and we must be prepared for any adverse response from the nation. So the problem was not criticizing China. The problem was not being prepared for adverse response from China. And all these are indicative of a weakness in interpretation and analysis of intelligence available. So it is the poor intelligence gathering and strategic calculation that has brought us here. The author further looks into the institutional lacuna within intelligence and strategic policy making bodies that has harmed us. The author says that there is no problem with technological capability, we have it. But the advances in technology, especially artificial intelligence, requires a skill for intelligence analysis. And the author is not sure if the skilling up of intelligence force has happened. The principal responsibility for intelligence system and analysis concerning China rests with National Security Council Secretariat, India's external intelligence agency, which is RAW, the Research and Analysis Wing, and to some extent, Defense Intelligence Agency. The National Security Council used to have three layers, and recently one of the layer, Joint Intelligence Committee, was dismantled. And the author suggests that this dismantling has weakened the intelligence assessment system. He further says that in case of RAW, lack of domain expert and inadequacy of China as specialist might also have been contributing factor. In Ministry of External Affairs, experts on China have decreased in number, and the general tilt of the ministry towards US has resulted in imbalance in the way that the ministry perceives the problems and the situation in the region, especially vis-a-vis China. The author also highlights one of the important shift in diplomacy that India had recently. The author says that preference have been given to summit diplomacy. Summit diplomacy is one in which the head of the governments meet. The author says that summit diplomacy cannot be a substitute for carefully structured Foreign Office policy making. Foreign Office is the embassy basically. Foreign Office has a great role to play in any country's strategic policy. The information that they gather from the country is very important. The sensitivities of the nation is known basically from the Foreign Office. Nepal suddenly has come as a surprise to us, but the Foreign Office in Nepal must have been aware of what's happening in the nation. Perhaps the input was not taken or the importance to that input was not given. The author is saying that summit diplomacy most of the time backfires. He gives the example the disastrous meeting of the Prime Minister Indira Gandhi and the then US President Richard Nixon had long-term adverse impact on India-US relation. Although there are some successful examples, for example, the rapport between the Prime Minister Manmohan Singh and the US President George W. Bush did a lot of good to the bilateral relation. But he suggests that that was an exception. Mostly the summit diplomacy does not work out very well. Currently, India's summit diplomacy has marginalized the External Affairs Ministry with regard to policy making. And that is why we did not have a holistic strategy to deal with China. And probably we are paying a price for it. This news article is from page number 7. The preparation for year-long birth centenary celebration of former PM PV Narasimha Rao has started in Hyderabad. In this context, let us look at some information concerning the late PM relevant for the civil service exam. The late PM was an active freedom fighter during the Indian independence movement, and he joined full-time politics after independence as a member of Indian National Congress. He served in the cabinet of Andhra Pradesh from 1962 to 1971, and then he became chief minister of the state in 1971. He rose to national prominence because of handling diverse portfolios, significantly Home Ministry, Defense, Foreign Affairs. He became Foreign Affairs Minister in 1980 and then again in 1988. In 1991, he became the first person from South India to occupy the office of Prime Minister. One of the most important decisions taken by him was related to the appointment of his Finance Minister. He broke convention by appointing a non-political economist and the future Prime Minister, Dr. Manmohan Singh, as his Finance Minister. He is best known for the reform of 1991. The public sector-led model of development accompanied by other factors such as closed economy, license Raj system, had taken a severe toll on the Indian economy, leading to balance of payment crisis in 1991. India was forced to take loan from the IMF, and in return, India had to accept the LPG reforms. This reform of 1991 is considered to be the major watershed in the economic history of India. The transition from centrally controlled economy to private sector-led economy was undoubtedly a Herculean task and hence needed political commitment and economic acumen of the highest level. It was the political leadership of Dr. Narasimha Rao which enabled the smooth transition of Indian economy. Today, India is the 5th largest economy in the world. It has emerged as the IT capital and the back office of the world due to IT revolution. All of these have been made possible due to strong and effective leadership which was given to the country when it was going through the toughest phase. Apart from economy, PV Narasimha Rao also contributed immensely on the foreign policy front, and this is often forgotten or neglected contribution of the late PM. Look East policy was unveiled by PV Narasimha Rao, and that strengthened India's relationship with its neighborhood. Full-fledged diplomatic relationship with Israel in 1992 was also established under his tenure and due to his active participation in the process. The PM also led a systematic drive to draw the international community's attention to Pakistan's sponsorship of terrorism against India. The legacy of PV Narasimha Rao still continues today. The private sector led economy that was envisaged and the reform that was done for the same still continues during the tenure of PM Modi. Today, India has drastically gone up the ladder in ease of doing business index. And that can be said as a process in continuity that was started by PV Narasimha Rao. This news article is from page number 5. Draft EIA notification fosters non-transparency, encourages environmental violation. See, the government recently has notified the draft Environmental Impact Assessment 2020 notification under Environment Protection Act 1986. And this notification seeks to replace the Environmental Impact Assessment 2006 notification, which is presently in force. Many environmentalists, many organizations, including South Asia Network on Dams, Rivers and People, have raised objection. They have flagged major issues with the draft Environmental Impact Assessment Notification 2020. Let us see a little bit of background of Environmental Impact Assessment in India. In 1994, environment clearance for development projects was made mandatory for the first time under Environment Protection Act. Accordingly, Environment Impact Assessment was carried out in accordance with some regulations that were made by Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change under Environment Protection Act 1986. The Environment Impact Assessment, which is carried out in the current form, is in accordance with the Environment Impact Assessment Notification of 2006. And in order to account for changing times, Environment Impact Assessment Notification is revised from time to time. And accordingly, the Ministry has issued a draft EIA notification in March this year. There are two major issues that have been flagged by environmentalists. One is related to the dilution of EIA norms with respect to hydel power project. EIA notification 2006 has categorized development project into two types. Category A has projects which are located in the eco-sensitive zone and thus require mandatory EIA. The EIA for this category is done by the ministry itself. Then there are Category B projects. Category B projects are further classified as B1 and B2. B1 requires EIA to be undertaken by state forest authorities. And B2 project undergo a screening process, and after screening, they are exempted from EIA process. So the screening is done to identify whether the project will lie in B2 category or not. The draft EIA rules puts all hydel project below the installed capacity of 25 megawatt under B2 category, exempting them altogether from the EIA process. This is being criticized as hydel projects below 25 megawatt get a blanket exemption irrespective of their location. Secondly, there was a long-standing issue of conflict of interest. EIA is usually carried out by expert appraisal committee. Many a times, the member of these expert appraisal committee approving the projects have been Central Water Commission member or River Valley Project chairman, etc. Can you see the conflict of interest in this case? A member of Central Water Commission or River Valley Project or any other water related body will have the interest in encouraging hydel power project. So if the same person is sitting in the appraisal committee, then he will be tending to clear the project. This amounts to clear case of conflict of interest. And the new notification was expected to address this. However, this aspect has not been touched in the new notification. So these are the two main issues that you have to keep in mind. And since this is not the final notification, maybe government will incorporate some changes, but these two things you should keep in your mind. There are two more news articles which are important for the exam. One was covered yesterday, the Mopla Rebellion. or the Mappila Rebellion or the Malabar Rebellion. However, a more comprehensive notes on this topic has been provided in the DNS PDF today. The other is regarding the domicile in the Union Territory of Jammu and Kashmir. This has been comprehensively covered by Naveed Sir on 2nd of April 2020. The additional note on this topic also has been added in the PDF notes for today. Now we will see two news from the perspective of mains value addition. One news is from page number 4 with the title Proof of Planting Trees Must for Availing Government Services in Odisha. Actually, the Jajpur district administration in Odisha has made plantation a precondition for obtaining government licenses. This is a novel idea to popularize plantation drive by assigning specific number of trees to be planted against each license or service. For example, for getting a gun license, they have set a condition to plant 10 trees, apart from the general precondition that is required, for example, the certification of good behavior from neighborhood and etc. etc. And for renewal of gun license, 5 trees have to be planted. Similar precondition has been set for opening of new foreign liquor shops and for providing other services. These plantation has to be self-certified through photograph or video evidence, although the district administration can carry out random checking. The success has been stupendous. The district administration has achieved a milestone where public have planted 1.25 lakh trees in the Jajpur block. You can have a small write-up of around 50 words and you can use this as a case study for the environment section of GS paper 3. The other news is from page number 13. It is titled A Real Page Turner. The news is from Kerala. The thing is that with the contribution of local residents, an initiative by a library in a village of Kerala, Perumkulam, public bookshelves have been added. And this has made this village India's second village of books. The first village was Bhilar, a village in Maharashtra's Satara district, and that was declared as Village of Books in 2017 by the state government. And that sparked the idea, and that was continued and made on a larger scale in the state of Kerala. These public bookshelves are put out in public areas strategically where waiting time is high, for example, beside bus stop, and these areas are called as book zones. The purpose is to encourage people to pick books in the public zone and read them right there. This is an amazing idea. Suppose you went for a walk in the evening, you reached a book zone and you had a free reading there. So nice, isn't it? This will also inculcate reading habits, primarily in children. Through this idea, reading habit in children can be nurtured at very early stage. And that is why these book zones mostly have children books, they also have comics, although they also have books for adults. One thing must be popping up in your head right now that how this can be sustained, the books would be missing overnight, or maybe the glass of the shelf will be shattered very soon. But surprisingly, as per the feedback of the library that is running these book zones in Kerala, these public bookshelves are running hassle-free. One important reason is they are sponsored by local residents. When you have local ownership, then asset management is always better. This is also a very good governance idea to popularize reading habit and also improve the interest of people in books. Now let us see question for the day. The answer to yesterday's question for the day would be C. Yesterday's question was, which of the following countries are not members of ASEAN? Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, China, Pakistan. Shouldn't be difficult for you. China and Pakistan are not the member of ASEAN. No problem at all. Let us see a question for today. Which of the following happened during the tenure of Prime Minister P.V. Narasimha Rao? Unveiling of Look East policy, Pokhran test, enactment of Foreign Exchange Management Act, establishment of full-fledged diplomatic relationship with Israel. Your options are 1 only, 1 and 4 only, 1, 3 and 4 only, or all of the above. With this, we have come to the end of the discussion. I hope you will solve the DNS quiz. Thank you very much for listening to me. Goodbye. Take care.